Hello. I figured out how to use a compressor. So I'm hoping as I accidentally drop and clink things together, it won't be so loud. I'm going to paint. I have a couple things to catch up on. I have a personal project that I'm working on, and then I have a tiny show coming up. It's just a pop-up show. It's one painting. We have a week to do it, so I'm going to finish that. First, because safety first, I'm going to put on some gloves because I don't want oil paint on my skin. Not only is it good for cleanup, but you don't want that on your skin. Also, you may hear the occasional snuffling and chewing because the dogs are right outside my door and they're eating things. They like to just sit and watch me. I have a baby gate on the door to the room where I paint, so they stay out of here because I don't want them to eat any paint that falls on the floor, and also they're hairy and hair sticks to paintings. So I like to keep that all separate. Oh, all right. I've been doing really well. Did you hear that sound? That was, there is a Schnauzer and a Cavalier Spaniel, and the Spaniel has a very squished face. So when she snuffles, it sounds very juicy, I guess. That was her. If you could hear that. I'm totally settled in to my new place. Getting back into a routine and a schedule, which for me is very important. I do the best with a schedule because I tend to forget things that aren't written down. I'm gonna try not to scraping my palette, but I realize that might sound awful, so I'm not gonna do that. I'll just work around it. There are some times where at the end of the day, I'll sit down and think, wow, I don't have anything to do. And I'll feel all relaxed and there's no pressure on me. But I really do have things I need to desperately do. But I think when my brain gets overwhelmed, it just kind of shuts them out. So I have to make sure to keep a list. Otherwise, I will completely forget and then miss deadlines. And it's a very interesting way to procrastinate, I think. My brain makes that decision for me. So I've been good at writing in my planner, keeping a schedule, doing things a little at a time instead of all at once when I have to. So I have some underlayers of this painting that I put down and it was too dark. So I'm going to back up and lighten that up. So that's what I will be working on. It's fall here, and I love fall. It's my favorite season. I think it's just incredible to me how trees take all the nutrients out of their leaves and they take it down their stem and they store it in their roots for winter. Amazing. that is so cool to me. Everything just kind of beds down for winter. Reminds me a lot about seasons of life. Sometimes we're just surviving. Sometimes we need to go inward and just kind of preserve, make it through the winter until it's time for spring. And it's safe to come back out and grow. It's okay to not be growing all the time and improving all the time. Sometimes you just need to maintain and stay afloat. Sometimes that takes a long time. That'll last a while. But it's okay. And I know it's okay because my therapist said it's okay. She's a professional. Okay, we need a soft light green that I'm mixing. Speaking of taking care of yourself, I was talking with some friends about self-care because I wanted to know. Oh, excuse me, 1 minute here. Get this towel. I use shop towels to wipe my paintbrushes on, so I'm just situating one. I like how fabric-y they are. Okay, as I was saying, I was asking what people do for self-care because I wanted ideas and I wanted to be able to share ideas with you because I'll tell you the things that I enjoy, but I wanted to hear what everyone else was trying. And the conversation came up that some people, they stay pretty stable. They keep a pretty consistent base. They don't have a ton of stress. They don't have a lot of emotional crises or intensity that way. And some people do. Some people just experience things differently or have different life experiences. I know your past can affect it. So it's interesting to me to think, I always just assumed that everyone was really stressed all the time and that some people were just better at self-care and they were better at centering themselves and bringing their stress down. And it made me feel bad because I thought, if it's so easy for them, why isn't it easy for me? Why can't I just take care of it like they do? Now realizing everyone's different and everyone's life experience is different. We are all going through different things. So we were talking about that. Some people, you're going to take, my easel is squeaky. Some people, you're going to need to take more time to center yourself, to de-stress. And you're going to have to do that more than other people have to. But we're all coming from different places, so don't worry about comparing yourself that way. Because if I ask, what do you do for self-care? And some people are going to say, oh, I don't. I'm just fine. And then some people have a whole list or a routine. Because we all have different needs. Also, people's definition of self-care is going to be different. I just dropped all my brushes. Instead of paint with me, this should just be called struggle with me. Everyone's definition of self-care is going to be different. So when I was growing up, we didn't have Band-Aids. We couldn't afford them, and also if you got hurt, you would get in trouble. It was a bad thing if you accidentally got hurt. So if we were bleeding, we would just put some tape on it, like electrical tape or gaffer tape or whatever we could find. So to me, buying Band-Aids was an exotic, it was a treat. It was something very special and frivolous. And it took me a little while to get out of that mindset to realize that if you're taking care of yourself, your well-being, that isn't something special, a special occasion. That should be every day. Pups are restless. They are fine. They just want to play. It's hard for them to watch me do something they can't be part of. So also remember that, well, I guess when I was asking people, what do you do for self-care? And they said nothing. And I thought, oh, that's terrible. You're not taking care of themselves. But to them, what I would consider self-care was just basic care, making sure you're getting good nutrition, adequate sleep. And I think that is something to consider. Are the things that you're doing once in a while that you think are a special treat, maybe those should be things that you do all the time. Realize that you deserve to be taken care of all the time. And I know it's not easy. I know it's hard to change that mindset. That takes time. Oh, this is looking so much better. Oh, I love this. Yes. This was one painting when I was starting it. I thought, oh, this is not going to turn out well. Just coming around. Really got to stick with it. Wonderful. This is really cute. This one isn't, this is just one of my, what do I call that, regular paintings. It's not for anything in particular than to sell, which is something my professors used to be very rude about. They'd say, oh, it's terrible you make art just to sell. Why? That's what I want to do. I want people to buy it so I can make another one. It's alright, we all have different goals. This is great. Love it. Okay, so I'm going to tell you. I took notes so I didn't forget. Let me pull up my notes. Okay. Some of the things that I enjoy for my self-care. And then I would love to hear what you like to do. So one thing that just makes me feel at home and calm, I like to kind of create a safe, cozy space when I am at home. And I know this is a privilege. A lot of people don't have a safe, comfortable space. Growing up, I didn't. It just took a really long time to get it, so I'm grateful for it, but I know that it's not possible for everyone. But sometimes you can start with little things, and then as life goes on, as you're able to find more spaces where you're safe and welcome, you can kind of expand that feeling. So I like to get home, and the first thing I do is I light a candle. Because fire is really impressive to me. It comes out of nowhere. I understand the science behind it, but to me, there's just way more magic to it. It just appears out of nowhere. Sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. And it can get really, really, really big, or it can stay tiny. It can be a tiny flame. And something about fire just, it makes me forget about a lot of problems, I guess, because I'm just in such awe of it that I can just make a tiny fire on a candle, and you can hold it, you can carry it around, you can, snuff it out. You have this bit of control over something that is wildly uncontrollable. And it just makes me feel safe. It's something that's alive, so I'm not alone. I get home, light a candle, it's alive. It's a beautiful, fierce thing, and then when I no longer need that comfort, I just put it out and it goes somewhere else until I need it again. So there could be something like that you do. You get home, you open a curtain, or you turn on some music, or you light a candle, something to kind of welcome yourself home, I guess. Plants are similar to me because they're pretty magical to me. You put it in dirt and a plant comes out, however that's supposed to work, and they get huge, and they're alive, and they're always growing, they're always listening. So I like plants as well. I used to take a lot of plants in from outside. Before I got fancy house plants, I would just grow weeds in jars and stuff, and some weeds are really beautiful. Tended to overwater them though, because a lot of weeds are hardy and they don't want that much self-care. I killed them with kindness. Especially dandelions. Dandelions are my favorite flower, and they're really hard to grow because if the conditions are too lush, they just tend to die. Hi, pups. What you doing? They're staring at me. Something else I really like to do when I have some time, I love taking baths. They're so calming to me. It's such a little, confined area. You fill something with water, you get in it, and you're just in this little, I guess, fortress. It just feels really nice and contained. And if you don't have a bath, you can just do a foot bath. I used a bucket before. You can use a Tupperware, something big enough to put your feet in. Throw some Epsom salts in there, or orange slices, oils, rose petals. Well, flower petals. Rose petals are a little fancier, but you can put a lot of things in a bath. Whether it's your whole body or your feet, even your hands. I find that really relaxing and kind of ritualistic. Makes me feel like I am intentionally caring for myself. Oops. I just cleaned this brush and then I dipped it right back in the paint. Absent-mindedly. Oops. It is where it belongs. Another really nice thing to do is use smells. And that is something that people recommend for if you're trying to meditate or you're trying to be present in the moment, if you disassociate or you get flashbacks. Smells are really, really tied to memory. They're super strong as far as directing your brain. I don't know if you've ever had that happen where you smell something and a memory comes back from years and years ago that you had forgotten. So you can train your brain to associate certain smells with calmness, with safety. So when you're feeling anxious or you just need to recenter, you smell that, it will bring your brain back to that. So times when you are alone, whether it's at home or in the forest or in the car, somewhere you can get and smell something and associate it with calmness and pleasant things. That can be really nice. I love lilac. It's a good smell. I got an oil that smells like lilac. And sometimes I'll put it in. It's my alternative to incense. I don't handle smoke really well. So instead I'll get a bowl of water, put some oil in it, or flower petals or herbs, things that smell really good, and kind of walk it around the house basically, and just let my brain kind of take in the smells and take in this atmosphere of calmness. I've done it before in my car when I was going to school and I was really anxious about that. I had a piece of fabric that I would put the oil on, and I just kind of wave it around in my car and smell it, and it would just create this area of mellowness. So that's something that can be really nice. And you don't just have to do self-care when you're stressed. In fact, it's really good to do when you're not completely overwhelmed, because then you're kind of building up this reservoir of stability that can help when you go into seasons where you're struggling a little more. I know for me, I have a fairly predictable kind of roller coaster of how I'm feeling. My whole family deals with a lot of mental health struggles. So it's just something we kind of grew up with and are used to, and it can help to have things to fall back on, like the things I mentioned, so that when stuff gets a little more stressful, can do those things and it takes the edge off. And it's also nice to have some healthy coping habits that you can go to, because I don't know about you, but when I'm really stressed, I sometimes just want to do things that are not good for me, that don't help. There's some foods I love to eat that make me feel worse, or I eat a lot of sugar, or I start staying up late. Things that for me really don't help. They're not good. So after practice and time, kind of having this list of other things I can do, when I start to go down that rabbit hole, I just hit pause and I say, there's a bunch of other things I can do that can help, so I don't just spiral. I still get stressed. I still occasionally, very rarely now, have panic attacks, but now that I'm able to recognize that, it just doesn't get as bad as it used to, because I'm able to stop it before it just kind of goes out of control. Another thing I love is physical exercise. And this doesn't have to be like working out, doing a workout routine, or going to the gym or running. Just something that gets you moving. It could just be walking. I really love basketball. Well, let me rephrase that. I like shooting basketballs into hoops. That's about the extent of it. And then chasing the ball when it rolls away. And that gets my heart rate up so much. I can't believe how much of a workout it is for me. It expends a lot of energy. And when I'm expending physical energy, that helps my mental health quite a bit. Also, I think something that it's really easy to be constantly avoiding things, whether that's avoiding stress or avoiding difficult feelings, trying to distract yourself. But it's really important to, instead of just always telling yourself no, to have things that you can direct yourself towards. Oh, this looks really good. I just mixed a new color and threw it on there. You never know how it's going to work until you put it on, and it looks great. It's great. Okay, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Give yourself things that you can focus on, that you can obsess about. Something I love to do. I love learning. And it seems like at a certain point in life, if you're not actively in classes, it's easy to just stop learning. And a lot of the information we get is just snippets. For instance, the tree thing. You might hear a fun fact about trees that says, hey, in the fall, trees take all the nutrients from their leaves, they take it down their trunk, and they store it in their roots. And I'd see that and I'd say, oh, that's neat, and then move on to the next thing within seconds. But I love learning new things. I think it's really important to do. It's a good way to exercise your brain. It's a good way to rest your brain. So something I recommend, if you pick a subject and you really dive into it, so, I would take that interesting thing I saw that I was interested in and take it further. I'd maybe get a book about trees, or I'd do some more research, read some journals, read some studies on trees and different kinds of trees, because some trees store nutrients for winter, and then some trees are evergreen. They're green all year round. And how are they different? Why are they different? Stuff like that. I found that to be really relaxing because it's counter to the information we tend to get now, which is very in your face, very fast and loud, very dramatic and sensationalized. And it could be any hobby, obviously. It doesn't have to be trees, just something you take an interest in. Take it a little bit further. Maybe keep a notebook and jot down the things you learned. Tell one of your friends, when you're talking about your interests, new things you're learning about a specific topic. You can kind of narrow it down, focus on one thing. I found it to be really calming and really centering and counter to kind of the scattered, attention-grabbing information that is thrown at us on a daily basis. Okay, this is looking good. I'm at kind of a decision point. I think I'm going to leave the background. I like that. And I'm going to add some dramatic highlights. And it's dark and it needs some highlights. I don't enjoy drama in news and information as much as I enjoy drama in painting. There's this term, chiaroscuro, which just means, well, I don't know the literal meaning, but in painting it refers to a dramatic dark and a dramatic light, almost like a spotlight. You have intense shadows, and I really love that in painting. It's just so exciting. So when I start painting, I paint really dark, and I add all the highlights on top of it. So I'm going to mix some highlights. I would love to hear things that you do to help you calm, not just when you're in crisis, but just normally. Things you kind of do to recenter yourself, ideas you have for self-care, or maybe something that you've tried that you discovered isn't something just special, but is something that is good for you to do to take care of yourself. Kind of like me and using Band-Aids instead of tape with dirt on it. If you are sleeping, sleep well, sweet dreams. And I'm going to keep working on this. And I hope if you are in fall currently that you enjoy it as much as I do.